nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Brethren in Christ, laudetur Jesus Christus.
In secula.
It's Timothy Flanders with the meaning of Catholic. Jesus is King. Welcome once again to the Terror of Demons morning show, reclaiming traditional Catholic masculinity with co-hosts Kennedy Hall and Jake Fowler. Jake, how you doing, brother?
Pretty well. Morning, fellas. It's early here.
Are the flowers blooming yet? And where are you in Missouri? I forgot.
In Missouri, yeah, just south of
Missouri?
St. Louis.
Fantastic.
Not yet, but soon.
Excellent.
My allergies picked up, so I can tell.
Do you have green coming out of the earth?
We do, yeah. We got some green.
Wow.
In fact,
Amazing.
I was looking outside yesterday, and like little sprouts about that big. So
They have green, Kennedy. They have green.
We do too.
Kennedy,
we have green. It was the ground.
Evergreen.
Is it? Yeah, we actually do a bunch of those. But is it the same in other? I mean, the Midwest. I know parts of the Midwest are like here because I'm only like 4 hours from Western Michigan, but our grass just goes dormant as soon as the snow falls, and then when the snow goes away in the spring, it's still green. So it actually is.
Oh yeah, I mean we got grass.
Yeah,
we don't have any sprouts like Jake does.
We had
you don't have sprouts
yesterday. We had a fall yesterday.
Oh yeah. We hit that fall and on Saturday. It was great.
It was
All
like
the kids were
13
outside. We were playing. That was
13
fantastic.
degrees Celsius or whatever. It was like 58 Fahrenheit. And so actually, like almost all the snow in my backyard is gone, but then it's going to drop and probably March is like that up and down. It's climate change, really, is what it is. It just,
yeah.
You know, this is
Global
why
cooling.
I realized if I ever had to be on the stand and like profess that I believed in climate change, I would have the mental reservation, have no problem doing so. I do. It changes all the time. Changes 4 times a year. Sometimes within. It's all yeah.
Yeah. Here in the great state of Michigan, we have. March is early spring where everything looks nasty. There's nasty snow everywhere. It's cold. It's still brown. Cold. A little bit of rain. Then April showers bring May flowers. Yeah. We've got a bunch of rain in April. Washes away all the nastiness. Finally, we get green in May. Although in Michigan, I have seen snow in May. Yeah. So that's our record in Michigan. I'm sure Kennedy has seen snow in May as well. Have you seen snow as late as May, Kennedy?
Yes, I have seen it as late as May 24th weekend.
Ooh, that's better than me. I hats off to you.
That's I think we have Victoria Day, right? I think it's the same weekend as when's your Columbus Day?
October 12th.
October.
Never mind.
But it's like a Monday after.
That's near Thanksgiving.
Something like that.
May 24th, it's Victoria Day. We call it May 24 weekend, and it's like it's when you're supposed to plant everything after May 24. It's like that's the time to plant your garden because it'll be fine. But the odd time you'll have like snow falling on May 24, like wet snow. Hey, Jared.
What's going on, guys? Yeah.
He just finished his book. Finally made it.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. Finally made it, man. It's true. It's true. I don't have an excuse today either. I don't have any like awesome explanation as to why I didn't make it.
Got lost on the way to work.
Yeah, I got lost on the way to work downstairs.
It's construction. You can get through.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't have the liturgy home pulled up, but welcome to the first full week of the Great Fast of Lent.
Mm-hmm.
This week, speaking of springtime, this is the spring Embertide. This week, we have 3 holy days of opportunity, right. Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, which are formally days of fasting. But this is Embertide, if not familiar, is an ancient custom that dates back very, very early in the Roman Rite. And that is a thanksgiving for the prior season, thanksgiving for all the blessings of the prior season, winter, and supplication, also penance for the sins we committed in those years, that season, and supplication for the new year, or the new season. So the springtime, so the spring harvest, the blessings of food. We may actually see some food shortages with the attack on Ukraine as a huge wheat supplier of the world. So we can reconnect with our ancestors and reconnect with the realities that we're facing in this Embertide, spring Embertide, holy days of opportunity. So if you haven't yet take on Lenten penance. We have a Lenten sodality of fasting. We're fasting for the clergy. It's the Fellowship of St. Anthony. So been really excited about this group. It's God has just sort of brought it together. So that's open to all guild members. And if you can't afford to be a guild member, you can certainly join for free. Just contact me, meaningofcatholic.com/contact. This week, we're going to, so this is our free morning man show. We are also planning to, on our patron-only stream, we're planning to delve deeper and deeper into the controversial topics, because now that war has broken out, things have gotten very insane, and we need to be very careful about the analysis that we bring to this. And we also want to look at practical things. That's what the Meaning of Catholic Guild is all about. The Guild is designed to have Catholics as an economic structure of helping each other against the Marxists in our post-Christendom world. And this is step one in rebuilding Christendom, is helping each other against all these economic these things that are going on in the economics, in order to build something locally. So Meaning of Catholic Guild, we want to give a penetrated analysis of what's going on in the true controversial, so we can speak candidly in this, patron-only streams. We could talk about all the, so the next one of the next topics we're going to do is the Conspiracy of Antichrist. What is it? It's the real enemy. And we'll apply it to the current news. Who's part of the Conspiracy of Antichrist? What's happening? What might happen? And how do we practically do that in our local communities to fight against this, to build for our own children, to pass down the faith to our children? So we'll be getting into all those things. We are going to release our show on the Ukraine. I did a show last week with Dr. Matza on that. So we'll get into a bunch of controversies with that as well. So if you want to become a patron to be a part of that, patreon.com/meaningofcatholic. And you can also go to meaningofcatholic.com and click donate. But we also have a new release, a re-release of Kennedy's great novel, which is the new name is Lockdown with the Devil. Kennedy, this is a fantastic book, and we're serializing at 1 Peter 5. I really love this novel. Tell us about this novel, and why should people buy this fantastic text?
Well, you should buy the book because I make money off it. No, but
support the Kennedy Hall family and all the Kennedy children who are starving in Ontario.
Yeah,
Just kidding.
We're also
not
starving. Gas is going to be $8 a gallon here in a day or two. That's the conversion anyway. So there you go. That's why you should buy the book. It's an hour drive to church. Okay, so when I wrote this book, I thought, I wasn't sure what the lockdown would do. I wrote it in the summer. I finished it in August of 2020. And I thought I wanted to name it Lockdown with the Devil at the time. I remember Tim and I were talking about various names. And I remember talking to Taylor Marshall, and I was asking him what I should call it. And he said the lockdown thing is good, but like we weren't sure if it was going to be a passing fad. Well, 2 years later, it's just sort of finally going away. So this lockdown moment is, it's like going through war, in the sense that it's just one of those historical events that we'll study for decades, and what went wrong and so on and so forth. And so I was inspired by the Screwtape Letters. For those who haven't heard of the book before, Screwtape Letters was written by C.S. Lewis, and he follows essentially a convert, a guy who's having a conversion, through about 30 chapters or so, and they're letters written from one devil to another to train him how to tempt this man. And it goes to the psychology of basically the diabolical. And it's really illuminating. Is reading the Screwtape Letters today is like reading, in a lot of ways, contemporary commentary on what's going on, because he saw through the heart of things. And he used World War II as the setting, because if you use some sort of historical event, it makes for a very lively setting. So I used the lockdown as a setting. So this follows a family of 2 parents, 2 children, and through basically the initial locking down of society, and then the fallout in the family because of the thrust into unemployment and the diverging opinions amongst those people listening might have this in their own household. And there's a devil that's trying to damn an entire family, and the reason why it's one family versus just one patient or one person is because we've become so morally weak in our modern day that they just send one. They used to send one devil per person. Now they just send one devil per family because that's all they need. And it is a harrowing tale, though, and without giving too much away, it has a happy ending. I'll just put it that way. And it's a story of conversion. And I was reading some of it again the other day, and I'm quite proud of it. So it is something that I think everyone who's lived through the last 2 years, especially if you've lived in a red state or blue state or Canada, you'll read it and go, oh my goodness, that articulates everything that I thought was wrong with this. And I saw this exact thing with, my sister or my cousin or whatever. Anyway, I hope that's what it does. And also, the nice thing about writing as the devil is that you can say things as that character and get away with it. So I was able to say a lot of things, and I think it did all right. And that sounds like my own life in this novel.
Yeah. I think this is fantastic spiritual reading too, even though it's not really meant as spiritual reading. It's just a novel. But I think that at least for me, like I can be way too intellectual to a fault. Like I'm just thinking and thinking. Like one person called it analysis to paralysis. Like you can't stop thinking, and you're still distracted. You can't even be in the present moment. But a novel helps you get out of that, and you just start to think about this story, and you connect with the characters. And I love this text because it's really so powerful, and it does delve into a ton of controversial stuff that people don't want to talk about, like pornography, all that stuff, and the way the devil works. So it's a fantastic text. Pick it up. Support the Hall family. We should get Michael JB do an audiobook too. That needs to be on audio. Oh no, you could do it. You're an audio person.
Yeah,
you can do all the voices.
Now. I think I'm going to. I have to finish this other book that I'm doing, and then Jeremiah knows this. When you're trying to be a writer, you just want to imitate the people you think are better than you. So like C.S. Lewis and G.K. Lewis and Chesterton, it's like on my tombstone, if it says, poor man's Chesterton, Lewis, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
And the audiobook of Screwtape Letter read by Joss Ackland. He's a prolific actor. It is like the greatest reading of any book of all time. It's unbelievable. And so I'm going to do my best interpretation of that when I'm done in this other one, except without the British accent, because that would sound put on.
All right, fantastic. Well, we just had Kennedy do his grifter segment to use up all the time. We want to get into Kennedy's content.
See you guys tomorrow.
But Jake has Jake, when is your show? When is your next show coming out? Are you going to
tomorrow morning?
Fantastic, and that's on Kelsey
tomorrow morning. Yes, Chalcedon, the council proper. And then I was going to do a little aftermath, but by the time I checked the time, we'll do the aftermath another episode. So I guess the next week. So yeah, tomorrow morning.
Yeah, Chalcedon really is. We talk about Vatican II causing the crisis in the church. It was actually Chalcedon which created the four. I mean, one could very reasonably argue that Chalcedon is actually the council which destroyed and made a massive crisis in the whole worldwide church forever that still exists with us today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You could easily make that argument.
A lot of the schisms, could be traced back to that.
Chalcedon is a huge council. So check that out tomorrow morning. Paleocrat, what's going on? Have you finished the book?
No.
No. You're fired.
No. I know I am. I know. And I'm still at that 2-chapter place. And some of that I can make excuses, but most of it I cannot, because 2 chapters is, 2 chapters. And so it should be done. And I've already thrown myself under the bus by saying that my chapters are not normal chapters. They're like way shorter. So it's essentially like writing 2 rather respectable articles. And the fact that it's not done is an embarrassment, but no, it is not. So I've got that I am doing. And then I've got today at 11 a.m. Kaiser Standard Time, so it might be 11:15. It's 11-ish, no matter where I am. It's 11-ish. I'm going to be talking about continuing the series. I think it's episode 7, I think it's 7 in the series on the word of faith heresy. And today we're going to be talking about their deification of man. The idea that they believe that just as a cow gives birth to a cow, and a cat makes a cat. God made gods, and that they deify man, and which is why they come to the conclusion in the end, not only that God is about 6'3" with a 9-inch hand span and stuff like that, but also that God needs permission now to do anything. That on earth that you have to give him permission to do anything, because he gave dominion to mankind, and their idea of dominion, of course, is super warped, including the idea that, you know, for Adam to have dominion over the fish, he needed to be Aquaman essentially, and that he could fly to the moon. So apparently he's up there in the moon, you know, he's doing his thing. So he was. You know, but we're gonna be talking about that, the little gods belief they've got, deification of man, and that will be at 11, and then just Wednesday and Friday continuing. And I did a second show, just as a reminder to people. I did a show on Friday night. I did all together that day 3 shows. I did the my show. I do the Afterglow show on Telegram every time now. So as soon as the show's over on Reason and Theology or Meaning of Catholic, I go to Telegram, the Wolfpack chat, and we talked for about an hour and a half over there. And then last Friday, I did an extra show at night, and that one was about revivalism and an introduction into counterfeit revival. And so that'll be the next thing after the Word of Faith series is over. We'll be talking about revivalism, especially modern revivalism, 20th century, 21st century. And so I talked about that, and that was a lot of fun. The New Apostolic Reformation, all that stuff.
This is fantastic. So, yes, Paleocrat, the hammer of the enthusiasts, continues. Yeah, this great, because somebody's going to be Googling somebody's going to be in the Word on Fake cult. They're going to be like, something's not right here. I'm going to Google that. And then Paleocrat Diaries is going to pop up, and they're going to start watching your videos, and then they're going to contact you and be converted. Thank you. Thank you in advance for all these souls that you're going to help. So
we've
so actually, check it out. Yeah,
that's the thing. I'll say this real quick, man, is that it's been really encouraging, the Afterglow show, because it's like Skype. You just hop on. You don't have to have a video on. You don't have to have audio, but you can if you want. And it's been cool because it's more of an open forum. And I've heard crazy stories. I didn't realize I knew it was vast. I knew it was a huge problem, but I didn't realize how many Catholic people either used to be part of it or had family members that are part of it or still are. In fact, and some who are Catholic and who just turn on TBN to watch TBN all day, you know, and just that kind of a thing. And the kind of stories that I've heard, even the story about a woman who was involved with New Age, got into tarot reading on TikTok, got into crystals and stuff like that. And through that Afterglow show, they were asking questions, and someone in the chat, Haley, mentioned a link and shared a link with this person. That person gave the link to his sister, who was into the tarot reading. And last week, the sister threw away all the tarot cards, is no longer doing any TikTok with tarot, got rid of all of the stones. Now, he used to be Protestant, so went back to, reading the Bible, trying to find out where she went wrong. But the idea is that that's progress. Dramatic progress, man. And so it's a huge praise report. We're getting that more regularly now. People sharing the links with their family that are into various enthusiasms. And a lot of it, of course, on Sedevacantism, we get a lot of emails about that. People in the chat now who were that or were on their way out and didn't know if they could even be a Catholic again. And they're back. And so it's been really awesome. The enthusiasm and the Enthusiasm Now series has been really powerful to see how God's used that in people's lives. And so, thank you.
Yeah. So you're coming at an important angle in apostolic work that's not covered as far as I'm concerned very much. So it's a very, very important thing. So check out Paleocrat Diaries, Enthusiasm Now, the hammer of the Paleocrats, the hammer of the enthusiasts now. So with all that, so speaking of tarot reading and crystals, how to defend yourself against Satanism. Kennedy has a very important chapter in his book on this. Terror of Demons. Be sure to buy it from Tan Books, not Amazon. So Kennedy, we're bombarded with occultism, tarot cards, hexes. What else? Monastery Icons are the company Monastery Icons allegedly are blessed with some kind of Hindu Gnostic hex. I asked the Dolerons about this. This is Father Ripperger's exorcist, and they said to burn all the monastery icons you have, monastery icons, burn them and bury the ashes. So
what's that place? Monastery.
Monastery Icons. We should give a quick PSA. I just let's see.
What is that? That's messed up.
Yeah, man.
It's like a company.
Have you guys ever heard of? Okay, if you haven't heard of Monastery Icons, let me just do this PSA. Monastery Icons. So I've seen many Catholics who have them. This is Monastery Icons. They have a particular aesthetic which you will recognize if you've ever seen these. They're very particular aesthetic. It's not like the aesthetic in other icons that you've seen. This is Monastery Icons, monasteryicons.com. So if you look at the aesthetic, it's very interesting. It's like sort of cartoonish, sort of like the Coptic style. The Coptic style is sort of like, could be described as sort of like cartoonish, but let me try to find one that's so like here's I Am the Good Shepherd Monastery Icon right here.
I've never seen these.
I don't know if you've seen these or not, but Monastery, they just have a very distinctive aesthetic, and you can always identify them quickly. Like because of the cartoon, like cartoons have strong lines. You put ink on cartoons, you ink things out, right? So there's these strong lines in these icons. So anyways, it was reported allegedly, again, I don't know if this is confirmed or not. So here's what I did. It was reported on a website that they were being hexed by some Hindu Gnostic, whatever, Orthodox Info, which is a schismatic Rokor Orthodox site, a terrible site for information on Orthodoxy, by the way, but they do have good information on certain aspects. They have an article about this Monastery Icons, warning people about them. I asked the Dolerons, Father Rippergers, I sent them an email. I said, I have a few of these Monastery icons, and allegedly they're being hexed or whatever. What should I do with them? And the exorcist said, burn them all and bury the ashes. So this is what apparently you should do with Monastery Icons, according to the Dolerons. Again, don't know if it's confirmed or not, but it's been reported, and that's what they told me to do. So that's what I do.
Well,
I usually just tell the exorcist. I usually just ask the exorcist and do what they do. I don't really try to ask questions or figure it all out. But
you're so rigid, Tim.
Yeah, I'm such a rigid when it comes to demons. I know.
Okay,
do what your priest tells you.
That's a good segue. There is a creepy element to that icon. That the lamb's eyes freak me out there. I just looked at that. Anyway, so the chapter in the book is called "Do Not Remove Your Sandals. You Stand on Unholy Ground." So the famous scene from Moses when he's at the burning bush, and he says, "Remove your sandals, you're on holy ground." We live at the opposite now. So a couple terms we should probably define. In this chapter, I just do a little bit of a distinction, but I use the term paganism a lot, partly because the alliteration of saying pagan proofing your home was a nice title. But a lot of those terms, they get thrown around. So let's distinguish between, for example, paganism and Gnosticism, and occultism or Satanism. So if we're being accurate, paganism, it comes from a word that basically means countryside. So this is why you could say sort of folksy. So you could call paganism folk religion as well. On the one hand, there is an innocence to the ancient pagan sort of history, in the sense of before Christ, there wasn't the revealed truth, and it's sort of the customs and the spiritual practices and superstitions that various groups would fall into. Chesterton would talk about the warm paganism of the Latins versus the cold paganism of the Carthaginians and so forth. And Tim, you got your screen on here, right? You're sharing the other screen. In any case, paganism, though, ultimately, as the Bible tells us, is the worship of devils when it's full all the way through. That doesn't mean everybody who's a pagan believes they're worshiping the devil. That's not the truth at all. That's kind of a mystery. You know what's the greatest explanation of how a pagan can be saved? It's in the last battle of Chronicles of Narnia. And this is a little tangent, but we listen to that series all the time. We drive like an hour to go everywhere because we live in the middle of nowhere. And so we have that. It's the best audio drama series. And the last battle, There's one of the soldiers who's a disciple of Tash, who basically is like some pagan deity.
Wait, is that the one read by Jean-Luc Picard?
No, it's like an audio drama with like 7 actors.
Oh, with sweet, fantastic.
It's amazing. Sorry. It's unbelievable.
Segue. Yeah, last battle. Go ahead.
And but at the end, this one guy basically, you can tell he's saved. I mean, he's in heaven in the way that C.S. Lewis writes it. And Aslan says to him, your worship for Tash was actually always for me, because you can give no good to Tash because he's evil, but you can only get. It basically was saying you actually were trying to worship me the whole time, but you didn't know who I was. You know, that would be how we'd understand invincible ignorance. Anyway, point is, paganism, though, is ultimately the worship of devils. And our society, we could call it a neo-pagan society. That would work. We could talk about the new paganism. Those terms have been used. And it manifests itself through some sort of nature worship. That's kind of the main thing today. This is why environmentalism is such a big deal. Even diets, like fasting and stuff, is fine, but there's a pseudo-ritualistic religious nature to a lot of these dietary things for people. Same way there was with Augustine, and they would talk about water drinking. People read this and they're like, what's with this? Why are they going after water drinking? It was because it was attached to an ideology versus, anyway. And but then occultism is a big deal. So Jeremiah was just talking about tarot cards. I never heard of TikTok tarot. That's I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. I never heard of somebody, taroting it up on TikTok. Yeah.
Even tarot. Okay, that's controversial as well. But those cards is like an ancient sort of medieval tradition that was used for things that weren't occult, and it was kind of a folksy tradition. But then it was co-opted to be this sort of thing used by psychic mediums and so forth, and it's become this occult thing. So occult is basically where you are trying to imbibe or summon demonic realities. Okay. And it can be completely explicit. So there's that Bloody Mary game that people would play, which their exorcists say is real. Don't do it. People would stand in front of the mirror and whatever, try to call on Bloody Mary. There's clearly witchcraft and these sorts of things. And people think these things are rare. They're actually extremely common. It's amazing how many people you talk to who have, come back to the faith, and they will say, yeah, I used to practice witchcraft. And I'm like, what? I mean, don't get me wrong, I had multiple other sins, but it's this thing that so many people do, and they keep it secret. The amount of, especially girls, will get together in high school, and they will actually do these witchy things. I don't know what percentage, but I would argue amongst sort of, let's call it like the public school crowd, it's probably 20-30%. They'll actually either intentionally be the person who does it themselves, or they will be around people who do it, and it's just something that happens amongst friends. So the occult stuff is real. One of the biggest pushers of occult stuff, in my opinion, and he probably doesn't know it, is Joe Rogan. And the reason is because he's consistently had people on his show who talk about psychedelic experiences. And if you listen to people who go through these psychedelic rituals, people will go to the middle of the jungle and they'll do this ayahuasca thing, which is this thing. They'll talk about meeting the plume. Basically, they basically talk about meeting plumed serpents and dragons who give them advice for their life. That's an occult, pseudo-occult pagan ritual.
Yeah, the little green man. Joe Rogan's the little green man, the DMT. Oh.
That's right, exactly. Aliens. Get your tin hats on here, people. Aliens is most likely basically an occult philosophy. It's this way of confusing what are apparitions of demons for. This is why when people talk about being probed, it sounds exactly like basically demonic manifestations, but they just don't have the vocabulary for it. In any case, occult is everywhere. We live, and it's always been everywhere. Okay, there have always been the forces of Satan who have tried to damn your soul and use certain things to do so, and it's no different today. The difference today is that we live in a functionally neo-pagan atheistic environment, so it's very hard for us to talk about this or recognize this with people. But it is everywhere, and it's funny when Jeremiah was talking about the whole tarot thing, like with the TikTok. I sound like an old person with the TikTok, and but there are so many layers of the occult baggage in everyone's life when you live in the sort of a secular world. When you come to the faith for the first time, or you're a Catholic and you revert and take it seriously, when you really dive into all of the occult influence, you will find dozens of things that might even be in your house, that might be part of your music collection, that might be part of whatever. Once your spidey sense is tuned into it, you go, oh my goodness, it's absolutely everywhere. And
I was gonna say, man, it's funny. I'm looking it up, trying to figure out the number of people as you're talking, like in America, that do this.
Mhm.
And I found this article from late 2021, USA Today. But it says right here there's a embedded link to another article on the site, and it says, "What's the deal with witch talk? We spoke to creators bringing magic to TikTok." It's right there on the screen, and it said the number of Americans who identify with Wicca or paganism has risen from 134,000 in 2001 to nearly 2 million today, according to Helen Berger, a resident scholar at Brandeis University Women's Studies Research Center. And it said that the witch community in America has been growing steadily since the 60s, she said, and, quote, much of the recent growth is coming from young women. And then it said here, it was talking about the editor of The Wild Hunt. It's a news agency focused on it. Said that subscriptions have climbed to 80,000 in the past 5 years, a 25% increase. And one of the things, it's like with cults, like it's really hard to know the exact number of people who identify with cults, because you call them up on the telephone and say, hey, are you part of a cult? People will probably say no, even if they've been dramatically influenced by it, and even if they practice in their lives. But it said that there's an observable difference on social media in the number of people practicing witchcraft and the number of people willing to discuss that practice openly, because witchcraft and witches have become more commonplace. So it's not just like it might be a lot of soul practitioners, but that they're open about it. Like there's not a fear or a hesitancy so much to just simply come out and say, hey, everybody, I'm witching it up today, or I'm doing my stuff on TikTok. And so because of that, TikTokers who share their witchcraft tutorials and other magical content under the hashtag witch talk have amassed more than 20 billion views. There are now podcasts, museum exhibits, and an array of books and classes focused on witchcraft.
So it's interesting. We talk about the rise and people not telling the truth in these cults. When you find all of these groups, you will find some sort of level of secrecy. And that's one of the marks that you can find yourself amongst. Like if you're not sure if something is occult and it's like spiritualist, basically just ask the person who's telling you about this, like, should we tell everyone about this? And if they say to you, well, no, it's just between us, it's like, leave it alone. Because if it's true, you should tell everybody about it. And that's one of the marks of the devil. Is one of the ways you can know the devil's in your life is from if something's duplicitous or prideful, which is one of the two marks of occult is basically, I have these secret things that I'm the man or I'm the woman and I know what it is. That's the pride. And then the duplicitous is basically the clandestine, behind the scenes sort of thing. And if you want to know the extent of occult influence, I mean, don't listen to pop music because you're a grown man and there's no point in wasting your time. But if you look at these famous, especially female, and we'll talk about how it, like paganism and stuff affects men. It's just men tend more towards materialism when they fall, so they're just less into the specific spiritualism of the occult. It happens, but it's less. So we'll talk about what falls them in a bit. But all of these famous pop stars. So I had to do some research on Lady Gaga, God save my soul, and I had to do research on her and this woman, Marina Abramovich. She's like the world's most. Yeah. I was looking for something. I was trying to do a video, whatever. I just needed to verify it, and I stumbled across a video. I will never share this. I can't even believe it's on the internet. I can't believe it. It was the
Abramovich method.
It was the method.
Yes. Yeah.
But it was Lady Gaga was going through it, and there was a video documentary on it.
Yeah.
There was a scene. It makes my stomach turn. Okay, where Gaga is painted in something, whatever, and she literally has these like horns on her heads and looks like a statue of Baphomet. And there's this, which is a devil, at the foot of the cross, and there is a horn playing. It's like the anti-shofar. Like you hear a shofar or like something that's going into battle, and it's like triumphant. This was like if you took the sound of a car horn and then put it in your GarageBand or Audacity thing and then distorted it to make it sound like all the off sounds were present. Like it was the only way to describe the sound was this. It was disorder personified. It was chaos in a sound. And that was playing while she was doing this thing. I saw like 8 seconds of it. Yeah. The sound that came out of my computer, I turned it off and I'm like, I verified it.
I watched the whole thing, and
the Gaga thing.
It involves crystals. Like she's laying nude on that, making sounds like singing these strange notes. They had her out in the river with the Baphomet. Yeah, right. She's out in the river.
You've seen it.
And I've seen it. That's, and by the way, Abramovich is, for people who aren't familiar with it, that's the spirit cooker. Yes. So the WikiLeaks stuff, that I won't say what kind of gate it was, but it has to do with stuff we eat with pepperoni. That whole thing, a lot of it was based around Abramovich, and what she does, she uses, you can actually see videos of this. Again, don't encourage it. Now she goes in to describe like what makes it spiritual and what makes it not. In her idea, if it's done in front of, if it's done kind of as an expo, it's not, which is of course just phony baloney.
If you do mass in public, it's not mass.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, but what she does is she'll take feces, pig guts, blood, things like that, and she'll paint these very esoteric, cut your finger, feel the pain, drive it beneath, that kind of weird stuff. She'll splatter it on the wall, and she'll write these things out. And then she'll sprinkle the blood and the feces all around the room, and she'll have this little idol in the corner, and she puts it on top of that, and then stands in a pose and has the light on her, and sometimes wrap herself in a snake and stuff like that. Really good friends with the Clinton family, invited to their wedding,
and the Gates family,
and Jay-Z, all of them. I mean, you
see that in Beyonce's, like, so when that woman, God save her soul, when because she's our age, like, I mean, she's when I was like 12, that was when that Destiny's Child group came out. Like, that's kind of contemporary with growing up, and they actually started as a Christian group. That's why they were called Destiny's Child. And one of the members of that group actually left when they'd stopped their whole pop group thing, that she went and was just like a gospel singer now. And thankfully, I think she went back to something more Christian. But Beyonce went on, and then there was a reinvigoration of Beyonce's career that happened. Like she became this pop star who just was like the sultry star. But that gets old. You got to reinvent yourself. You see this with Madonna. You see this with Lady Gaga. You see all. Once you're over the whole, it's like you're the chick who's like the sultry pop star. Why do they always come back with these reinventions? And whenever they come back with these reinventions, they're just weirdos.
Yeah,
like it's all dumb. I'm not saying it's good before that. It's stupid music. But when they come back, it's like they have alter egos. So what was Beyonce's? She would call herself Sasha Fierce. There's this interview. She's like, when I go on stage, I'm no longer Beyonce. I'm Sasha Fierce. And I just like become a new person. Okay, there's method acting and stuff but then the imagery changes. The same thing happened to Ariana Grande, all these women. The same thing happened to Taylor Swift. She was this little country star, and now it's like basically satanic music videos. Anyway,
right. Yeah, I mean, this is a really, very, very, very important thing to emphasize, because people think music is somewhat neutral. I just listen to the music. I just like the beat. It feels good. It's nice, whatever. I mean, and sometimes that's true. Yes. In a lot of cases, it is. I mean, a lot of cases, just like, neutral music, people making music, whatever. Yeah. But in a lot of time, it's not. And music itself, it has an extremely spiritual power. It goes straight to your soul. And so, as you said, there's sometimes this noise is used. I wanted to quickly point out, Kennedy, before you go on,
sure,
we have a resource for your book, meaningofcatholic.com/terror of demons. So if you go to that, it has resources for every single chapter. So we put this together. Whoops, I just clicked on the link. So we put this together originally when the book came out under A Lady of Victory Press. But you can click on every single chapter, and then you can go, and then it has all the videos for every chapter, all the resources here. So we're going down to, if we go down to your 4th chapter, Unholy Ground, you have this list of pagan and New Age traps. And if you click on that, this is just a list of all the different things that are out there. Some of these may be actually intrinsically, they're always occult or always pagan. And some of them are actually just sort of, they sometimes mix with it. So some of these, like, for example, Myers-Briggs. Myers-Briggs is not like, it's not a cult per se, but sometimes it can be mixed with that. And so some of these are just kind of like danger zones potentially, but not necessarily, or, Myers-Briggs in and of itself is fine. It's just like, personality test or whatever, but sometimes they can be mixed in with like energies and various things that go on. So take a look at that. I mean, this is a great little thing to check out. If any of this stuff is already in your life, you can just kind of like, FYI, what's going on here. So please go ahead, Kennedy. I just want to.
It's good that you brought that up. That Myers-Briggs one, for example. I've had people freak out and be like, "My goodness, I did a Myers-Briggs thing at work during a workshop. Did I like do Satanism?" No, that's not what I'm saying. Even if like, can you go down a bit? There was one there that I needed to see again. The Myers-Briggs one is important. Okay, for example, the Native American sweat lodges. There's obviously nothing intrinsically evil about sitting in some sort of hot room for a while and fasting and meditating. Like, you could do that'd be like a desert father. Like, you could find a way to do that, but it's what's attached to the whole ethos is the idea, right?
I can tell you from experience, I've done it 4 times. When I was an atheist, I did sweat lodges with Native American shaman. I can tell you, yes, it's definitely is definitely spooks, right? I mean, they're talking offering to their spirits. It's religious.
And but so the Myers-Briggs thing, personality tests can be fine, but it's what the problem with it is, there's like a determinist nature with it, and that's one of the marks of sorcery and witchcraft and things. Okay, so I should probably explain how that works. So people will say, like Tim was talking about, this idea of these icons being hexed. Well, how does that work? Because we're not so simplistic that we think that something has like spiritual cooties on it. We don't look at like Covidians look at a virus where you walk by somebody and you catch a thing. That's not how this works. Okay. But what it is if you have demonic imagery in your house, for example, and this is why Satanists and the groups love to put demonic imagery on clothing and things, it imbibes in you a certain psychological disposition. And when you sort of start to tap into this psychological disposition, it encourages you to think in a certain way. It's almost like playing the long game. So, if you go into, like, if you work in an old school record store and there's like the heavy metal band, okay, and like that band, even if they're just playing a joke and they just call themselves like some stupid name and they've got like a goat head with blood on it on the front, like, just stupid stuff that these bands would do for what they would consider a joke or whatever. The thing is, though, you see that day in and day out, and what it does is it imbibes in you a sense of disorder, it imbibes in you a sense of despair, it imbibes you a sense of disgust, and so on and so forth. It actually changes your mood, okay? And there's a spiritual reality to the way that you're thinking. This is why exorcists will tell you, the negative thinking as a mindset is actually terrible for your spiritual life. So with the Myers-Briggs thing, the reason why it can be an issue is because what it does is it gives you this sense, and I've never actually finished the test. I'm just saying from what I've researched on it. If you come out and you believe that like you have a certain personality, or you're sort of determined to think in a certain way, what that does is it sets the stage, it sets in motion the idea that basically grace cannot perfect your nature is what it would come down to. So, for example, in the Catholic tradition, even just antiquity, we would talk about things like temperaments. So we all have temperaments, but temperaments themselves are not set in stone. we believe that grace perfects nature. You can actually improve your temperaments through prayer and the sacraments. Whereas these tests, these modern tests of personality, they might be totally harmless in a sense, but you come out of there going, I am determined to be a certain way. And this is what the biggest effect is of hexes. So when somebody will curse someone, okay, the worst thing that can happen to that person is that they actually believe in the curse. And then they sort of start to spiral in their mindset, and they start to see everything in their life as a result of this curse, which ultimately usually leads to something like suicidal ideation, because you sort of believe you're on a rat wheel and there's no point. That's kind of the trap of how these things, will get you. Maybe someone else wants to comment on that.
That was an excuse me. That was a very interesting point that you just made, because I recently discovered that there's actually a Catholic version of the zodiac and like kind of like an astrology or whatever. That's actually legit in terms of the zodiac and the movements of the stars, which God moves the stars via angels, traditionally understood. God moves the stars, so the way things happen, the dates, December 25, the birth of our Lord, the star comes, and all these different things that are aligning. The stars are aligning, if you will, with the different dates and seasons and everything. There's sort of a Catholic version of that. But as soon as it starts to get into determinism, that's when you know it's evil. When people are saying, well, the stars not only align for the birth of Christ, but they determine your life and they influence what you should do, and they tell you what to do, and you have to do it. And if you don't do it, you're disobeying destiny or something. So, Jake, do you have any comments? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, there's there's so much. I've just been sitting back, soaking it all in, and some of this I'm hearing for the first time.
Song, right?
Yeah. I was just looking it up. I'm surprised you know the names of quite a few female pop stars. I'm starting.
Well, we've all got our vices.
It's for his job, bro.
Yeah, right. No, I'm just I'm kind of thinking, my goodness, there's a lot that I've heard before, a lot that I wasn't aware of, but it seems like, and this is sort of a truism, we're just so immersed in it that it's hard to know where the one stops and the other starts. So even Tim, just now, when you said there's a Catholic astrology, my eyebrow went, huh? Like what? And then you explained, oh, okay, this is actually legit, because I'm so on guard against all of this kind of stuff. So now I'm trying to think like, well, what albums do I own? And what do I still have from when I was 14 that maybe I shouldn't have? And well, I like that movie, but is there something in that? Do I have to watch it again? But if I watch it again, what's, and so the fact that we're just so immersed in it, on the one hand, it's really sad, the state of culture. But on the other hand, it's sort of, it's like a clarion call for spiritual guidance, right? If nothing else can drive us to Holy Mother Church, this ought to give us a sense of discernment, to give us a sense of spiritual protection, and to be able to know like what is and isn't okay for yourself, for your wife, your children, and all these kind of things. So, no, I think that seems to be really the heart of the battle, at least for this portion of your book, Kennedy, is don't let your guard down, because this junk is literally all around you in ways you had no idea. And it's influencing you, like the hexes on those icons. They're influencing you in subtle ways. So, I don't know if that's helpful or anything, but
it is.
That's kind of
a good point.
Just been thinking through all this kind of stuff this morning.
You bring up a good point. One of the traps that we can fall into when we recognize how ubiquitous this stuff is to adapt a certain scrupulosity. So, like, think about our ancestors who would read pagan literature. Think about Shakespeare, who writes with pagan settings and talks about the gods and things like that. Clearly, it's okay to look at things as like a literary device, or to use it to explain things with fiction, even if somebody believes that it was real. So one of the traps that we can fall into as traditionalists often, one of the traps we can fall into is again, I'm going to use this Covidian mindset. One of the things, and I'll talk about how that's actually a major trap for superstitious health practices. I want to last 15 minutes here. I'll bring actually the specifics of it up. When you start to look at the world as if, again, it's determinist. So like you encounter something, you're screwed. You encounter something, you're done. That's not how it works. It couldn't have been that case with like I was having this conversation with my wife, and we're like, protecting our kids and stuff. And I said, listen, sweetie, obviously we protect everything, but it can't be the case that if our kids go to like a restaurant or whatever, and they see something evil, that they're just done. Because then the sacraments don't work. Like that's not how this works. They have guardian angels.
Yeah.
Saint Ignatius of Loyola, in one of the post-communion prayers, he has the memory prayer. Where it's like, I give you my memory. Okay, if God cannot protect our minds from evil things, then what the heck is the point? So these things are overwhelming, but on the flip side, on the one side, devil wants us to engage in them. On the other side, he wants us to be scared of them. Right? So we have to find that balance of, I'm armored up, I've got my sacraments, I'm cloaked in grace and all this kind of stuff. That's the prayer of St. Patrick. St. Patrick's breastplate prayer was an exorcism prayer. He's like, I'm literally going to go walk amongst the druids, and they're going to be laying spells on me as I walk by. But, MC Hammer, you can't touch this. Because my armor is better than your things. And that's true. So we have to remember that.
Yeah, good point.
So just real quick here, I'll bring these up, and these will probably springboard conversation. We got, I think, can we do 15 minutes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that'll bring us 10 minutes over. But we want Jeremiah to get his full hour.
I was gonna say I was late, man. Yeah.
So there's 4 areas. I broke it down to 4 or 5 for women and men. For women, number 1, yoga. Okay. Now, if a woman accidentally, if I did yoga in the past before I knew what it was, you show up at the YMCA, there's like a free class, and you just do the thing. You're like, it's stretching and lunges, and it's good for my quads, and I'll get nice abs. Okay, you're not willfully, personally attaching yourself to some sort of pagan ritual, but it quickly becomes that. Okay, that's very dangerous. And Catholics fall into this all the time. I remember talking to one, and she was from a faithful Catholic family. And she said, well, Mom said it's fine. Just say Hail Marys before you do it. And I'm like, okay, so you're basically saying I'm going to go do this thing that I know is evil, but I'll just like, that's testing God. That's the sin of testing God, right?
There's a difference between I'm just praying because I like praying and this is the right thing to do versus I think I'm about to do something bad, so I better throw a Hail Mary up there.
Yeah, that's superstition. It's superstition. Second thing that's huge right now, mindfulness. Now, hold on. It doesn't mean being mindful is bad. There's actually a group out there called Catholic Mindfulness, and I looked into it, and it's actually totally legit. They are good psychologists, good priests who are saying this whole mindfulness thing is everywhere in workplaces and things, and it's completely Buddhist, it's completely Zen, it's completely Eastern, it's completely oriented away from God. But the reason why it's so attractive is because the physical methods work, which is true, right? Shut off your smartphone, breathe deeply. These are good. You find monks and desert writers and things like that. They'll talk about literally doing breathing techniques, and it engages them in certain prayer because it brings it clarifies their mind. That's fine. That's fine. But the mindfulness that is promoted to everybody today is basically it's a very dangerous practice because introspection is very dangerous. Because it's like there's an expression, your head is a bad neighborhood, you shouldn't go in there alone, when people are sitting there and you're like in a workplace and they're saying, just fine, go, I want you to think about this. And I've been in these things. I'm sitting there like, what the heck is everybody doing? I'm just like the guy at the back of the room, crossing my arms like I look like a loser. And it's not because I'm too cool. It's because I don't want to go into the whole whatever. And basically, the mindfulness is used as a practice to explain away sin, like popular psychology. So they'll say it's like, just meditate on this and get deep into this and find this. And it's like, you'll realize, that everything's totally fine. And basically it's a way to appease your conscience without actually having to confess the sin. That's why it's an issue. Also, it is basically Buddhism. when you actually look into the mindfulness people, it's basically Buddhism. And then when you'll find like so-and-so has like, I remember I was at a talk as a Catholic school board, and the guy who was doing the talk was this mindfulness guy, and it's all like non-religious. And then he's like, here's my website. And it's like, here's my Zen workshops. And it's like, okay, so you're just a Buddhist. And now everyone's going to go to your Zen workshops, right? Number 3, occult practices. We went over that a lot. And we watched the start of the episode if you're just joining us. Number 4, superstitious health practices. This is the one that's got me in the most trouble. That's okay, because it's true. What is a superstitious health practice? Well, what is superstition? You're ascribing to something that doesn't have certain powers that it doesn't have, and you believe. That's basically what superstition is. Now, routine is not superstition. If you're the closer and you feel better when you go out onto the mound in the 9th inning, that you have like the same chalk bag and your socks a certain way because it makes you focus, there's nothing wrong with that. You don't believe that the chalk bag like gives you stronger muscles, or you don't believe that the chalk bag like, you know, imbibes in you the spirit of Roger Clemens, you know, like you just are. It's like, I get it. I'm a goaltender in hockey. You want to know the craziest people on earth? It's pitchers and goaltenders. Okay. Like we talk to our posts, right? I mean, it's like, you know, thanks buddy. That was a good save you made there. And like, it's just innocent, totally fine. But superstitious health practices are where you ascribe some sort of healing quality to something that it doesn't have. Crystals. This is one that gets everyone mad at me. Little necklaces that the people put on their kids for teething. They're cute necklaces. Don't get me wrong. If it's just a cute, you like wearing the little amber stones, that's fine. But I'll talk to these women and they'll say this helps with their teething.
What about essential oils?
Essential oils can be fine as long as you don't believe the essential oils have a property they don't have.
Well, and it's weird. It's a hard line because it's a hard line to kind of figure out sometimes because, you know, I have a diffuser in my home, for example.
It's wonderful,
right?
Yeah,
Totally. I use thieves regularly. Like, you know, I've got
oils are great.
Frankincense.
They are
and all
very
that.
effective.
But I've also been to places where it was like some of the most voodoo nonsense I've ever heard, where they took it to another level. And I thought, okay, I get, you know, you can use lavender, for example. And I know this because of experience with my family, but like people with cancer, for example, a lot of times, just as an example, people can get a lot of depression, anxiety, things like that. And they found that having a diffuser or putting lavender on, that it helps to alleviate that. Just the smell of that is helpful. That's different than saying just put some on your head and it'll make the cancer go away. Like that's a different ball game completely. And so I think some things like peppermint can be good for your stomach. That's a good thing. But the idea of just lather yourself up, it takes care of everything. We need no use of medicine, stuff like that. I think that's where you get into a new agey spirit.
Yeah, it seems like it's sort of like it can be a catalyst to whatever you're predisposed to believe. Like I've put peppermint essential oil on my temples, and the next thing I know, my head doesn't hurt anymore. Like, okay, there's some natural, you know, medicinal properties to this kind of stuff, but I don't think by doing that, like I'm getting smarter or something, you know. So it's like whatever you're predisposed spiritually toward in the first place, these things will not really operate as a channel, but it'll sort of solidify you in that. So if you know, like crystals, okay, it's pretty, whatever, I like necklaces. If it's, you know, the amber thing, if it's the oil, but you're a rock solid Catholic, like these things aren't going to cause problems for you. I don't believe. But if you're tending in that direction, you know, then it just opens itself up to so many other things through the superstitious aspect of it.
It's a good point. And this, I'm going to talk in just a sec how modern medicine is also very superstitious, or can be. And we've just we are living through 2 years of COVID. We're living through a cult. We're living through pagan superstitious health practices right now because there's no rationale for 99% of it. But people can't function without them. That's a superstition, and it's crippling. But you mentioned the oils and stuff. One of the things that I think, like Catholicism solves everything, obviously, but one of the things you find in like medieval Catholic cultures, Christian era cultures, they didn't have allopathic medicine as we understand it today because it didn't exist. So they obviously didn't have like penicillin. So they had natural remedies, herbs and literally spices and all this kind of stuff. totally work for certain things. But obviously, if you get in a car accident and your femur breaks in half, you need a major surgery. And that's just what you need. There's no lavender that's going to fix your femur. Headaches and things like that. Smells totally work for that. I mean, people have headaches when that's why people say don't wear perfume, because some people headache. The flip side is certain smells help to alleviate the tension. It is what it is. Nothing wrong with that. That company, Young Living, it's one of the major oil companies. It's like that and doTERRA and whatever. Yep. Young Living has just been outed as 100% like an anti-Christic pagan company. All of the chicks who are the sellers, if they were like at a certain level, they all got this book that they were supposed to do a book study on, and it's really causing a lot of problems. A lot of like Catholic women on Instagram.
Can you send me the source on that? Because I know a lot of people who are.
Yeah, me too. I was going to bring that up.
Please
I was actually going to
the source on that so I can tell. Yeah,
it's called My Word. The book that they were supposed to read is called My Word Made Flesh. And it's about yourself being like the savior. And it's like an actual occult book that they're getting all their highest sellers to read.
Oh. Yeah.
Anyway, so there you go.
That's actually...
Send me the link what exposes it, and then I can tell these people. Because
this does not mean go throw out all of your things because you spent $7,000 on those.
No, too late. No, trash.
Trash. I was going to say, like,
well, we still have Young Living. We still have Young Living essential oils at our home right now.
Yeah, we do too. I have a huge container filled with it. That's where we get it.
Yeah.
But and the diffuser. But that's also where I went, and I care about these people a great deal. And in fact, it might actually be something worth doing on the show sometime, or on this channel at least, to have one of the people on. His name's Christopher, and he wrote a book about it from a Catholic perspective, going back in history and talking about what Catholics have believed regarding herbs and oils and things like that. And so
that's a good idea.
And at the time, it was number one in the same. I think you know how this feels, Kennedy. To have a book that's doing so well on Amazon that it's above a book written by somebody that you look up to a lot, like maybe like a Cardinal Sarai, and you're like, oh my gosh. And I think his book at the time in that category was above the Cardinals. So like, I mean, it was selling a lot. But it's one of those things that when I went to the convention and the organization as a group, it was one of those things I wasn't sure. And I bought some of the books, and I said, I don't buy all of that, but I don't think that dealers do either. Right. And I say dealers, I'm not trying to be like drug dealers, the Young Living drug dealers. But they're I think that they have various opinions on it, and it'd be worthwhile looking into that. I didn't know about that, My Word Made Flesh, or anything like that, but I'll tell you, there were, and I bought books to be fair. I said, I need to buy books written by, there was a doctor there, with more evidence-based. That's the way he presented it. And so, it's definitely something I want to look into as well. So I'm glad that you mentioned that book, to look into that. And as I said, it might be good to have my buddy on. I'm confident Tim knows him.
Well, I realize we won't be able to get to the second part of it. So we'll just do part 2. And so we can have more. We're not going to be able to get to men and paganism, because that deserves. We've dunked on the women's paganism a lot right now. We should probably give the men a whole show. Equality. We're all about equality. We want to make
sure. We are the man up show. So we want to give the man the harder time. Giving men the harder time. That's what this show is all about. So fantastic. Final words. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I'll just finish though with quickly the. Someone asked about homeopathy, just real quick, just so they're not leaving with like this burning question until next week. Listen, if it works, it works. If homeopathy means natural remedies that like make your tummy work, that's fine. But in homeopathy, there is a real Gnostic-y, pagan-y thing, and it's not necessarily that way. Because again, it could be that like you go to the store and they're like, use these magnesium salts because they help with and they do help because it's minerals and things, fine. But there's one thing that all the homeopathy people will tell you to do, and you got to be really careful with it. It's called succussing. What succussing is, they'll say you have this little vial of these little pellets or whatever, and they'll say, and people will debate whether or not those pellets actually do anything. Fine. Maybe it's a placebo effect. I don't know. But the point is they'll say you have to shake them to release the energies. And I have heard traditional Catholics say this. They go, make sure you succuss it. And I remember saying, so you think that this thing has like energies in it. That if I shake it, they're released. And if I don't, it won't work. If that's not true, that is 100% superstition.
Yeah.
Which is a sin against the first commandment. So homeopathy, the people will debate raging about homeopathy, whether it's fine or not. Homeopathy is a massive term that to people means a lot of different things. If it means natural remedies to you, there are, of course, natural remedies. We have friends who are traditional old school farmers from Austria, and they grow all these herbs and things and make teas, and they're wonderful. I mean, my kids have a stomach ache, they have whatever. We use more natural cough syrups and stuff for our kids. It's basically honey and menthol and whatever. Totally works. But you go to the next level and you're always in danger. And we can talk more about that next time. Last thing I'll say is ultimately, superstition is believing something has characteristics that it doesn't. Guess what? We'll say that we'll spell the word because of YouTube. MASKs do nothing to stop viruses, especially when you wear them under your nose, and especially when they're made of cheesecloth or an old toque. Okay? They do nothing, especially when they don't fit. So I don't want to beat too much upon the natural remedy people because I'm a natural medicine kind of guy. But we have just lived through occult, pagan, ritual health practices for 2 years, and it gripped everybody. Well, most people. And the person who calls himself a serious person because he wears a white lab coat, but tells you to go do something that there's no evidence for, is just as much a superstitious hack as the person who says buy my oils because they cure your cancer. Because both of them are wrong. That's the last thing I'll say.
I only want to add one thing, and that's just that I agree with everything, the last sentiment. But I think one thing that's often gets lost in this, whether it's medicine, whether it's any kind of decisions we make regarding how we need to behave during certain times, is that the reason why people have been so successful in showing how those things don't work is that they use a method of empirical data. Yes. They don't just woo-doo it into existence, magic wand it. And they don't just say, well, I experienced this, therefore, because that people can say stuff all day long of, well, I did this, therefore that. And that's just as basic as saying, yeah, correlation, causation. How do we determine that? And so I think that it's really good to point out the scientism and to show that just like superstition, scientism is a superstition, and to say, if you fall prey to this thing, sometimes it's easy to throw babies out with bathwater on it. And yet that's our strongest way to know, other than divine revelation itself about a particular thing, to say, well, here's why we know that these things don't work. And we can go through the data and show it. And we'll talk about the pores and the cloth and everything else and the size of the virus or whatnot and how it works. And we'll do that. And that's what makes our argument powerful, not only to oppose groups that go too far with their superstition, but also to give us a better understanding of what works and what doesn't work, so that we're not left to the whims and fancies of kind of the interior mind and stuff like that and whatnot. So I just wanted to just throw that out there because I think it's easy to lose that. I think it's easy to lose, to throw science out because you throw the scientific crowd out, rightfully so. Don't let them take science with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kick them out.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, Kennedy. I mean, it's basically about true metaphysics, true science. What really has evidence behind it? Do you understand that there is no such thing as energy? I mean, we've got like kinetic energy or, X-rays or stuff like that we can actually detect, that we can actually scientifically verify. But there's no such thing as these, energies that they're talking, these spiritual energies. Yeah. But there are angels and there are fallen angels and there is grace. This is the truth of the matter. And once you have the truth, then you can look at these things and be able to distinguish the good from the bad, the wheat from the chaff, and be able to use a natural remedy or something that was cursed by this druid, but you have the prayer of Benedict, so you're just using the natural thing that God created to be used. God created this, and it is good to be used for man. So I think I love what you're doing, Kennedy. This is fantastic. Once again, meaningofcatholic.com/terror of demons has all the resources, including that list we brought up. Buy the book, buy 2. Send one to
by 10,
by 10. But we want to spread this book because we believe that it will help men become men of God. Now, speaking of becoming men of God, Let's close with an Ave Maria. Kennedy, can you pray the second half of this Ave Maria? So we're trying to spread this devotion to Our Lady of Fatima under this icon, which was written by an Orthodox iconographer. This is the iconography is the writing, the script is written in Church Slavonic, which is the sacred language of Russia. And so there is also a shrine to Our Lady of Fatima in St. Petersburg that they're raising money to build it. So please donate to this important cause. In my opinion, this is one of the most important things you can do for peace in Ukraine, besides, doing all the Fatima stuff that you should be doing. Donating to this cause, I think, is extremely important for this shrine in St. Petersburg. This is the Russian Catholics in St. Petersburg spreading this devotion. So we're going to play an Ave Maria for Our Lady of Fatima, for peace in Ukraine and Russia, peace in all our hearts, especially that we might die in a state of grace as Catholics. In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
In nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Jesus is King.